Good morning. Today we'll continue with anti-diabetic drugs. In the previous class, we learnt about what is diabetes, what are the drugs used in diabetes. Drugs used for diabetes are insulin and oral hypoglycemics. We'll also learnt about insulin. In the previous class, we learnt about oral hypoglycemic drugs, namely sulfonylureas and meglitinides. These both are called insulin secretagogues. Coming to the next group, that is to overcome insulin resistance. Drugs used to overcome insulin resistance. So we'll be talking about biguanides. And glutazones and alpha glucosidase inhibitors. How do these function? These are basically insulin sensitizers. They are not going to secrete insulin, but they are going to alter some mechanism so that insulin usage is going to be increased. So first let's look into how metformin, biguanides or metformin is going to function. The first drug, biguanides, is going to function. Metformin is going to decrease blood sugar levels in type 2 diabetes. It doesn't cause hypoglycemia, but it is weight neutral, or it can also help in reducing weight. What is the mechanism of action? It doesn't release insulin. Then what is the mechanism of action? Exact mechanism is not known, but it decreases the synthesis of glucose through gluconeogenesis from glycogen. That is glycogen to glucose is gluconeogenesis. That is glycogenesis. Glycogen breakdown is inhibited. Not only that, gluconeogenesis, breaking down of amino acids to produce glucose, both of these are inhibited in the liver. And also it activates AMPK pathway, which results in decreased hepatic gluconeogenesis and glucose output. It also decreases glucogenolysis, that is glycogen breakdown. It increases the uptake of glucose into the skeletal muscles and fat. It decreases appetite, so less eating, less sugar. It also interferes with the ETC, that is electron transport chain, so that it is peripherally able to produce more ATP, more glucose. What else it does? It also inhibits absorption of glucose and other hexoses, amino acids and vitamin B12. Decreases plasma cholesterol levels, triglyceride levels. It increases fibrinolytic activity and decreases platelet aggregation, decreases lipolysis, that is fat breakdown and fat oxidation. So basic function of metformin is going to be on the liver, in the skeletal muscle and in the GI tract, where increased production of glucose is decreased from the liver, that is gluconeogenesis, and glycogenolysis is decreased, fat breaking down is decreased, and in the muscle it is going to increase the uptake of glucose. In the intestine it is going to decrease the absorption of glucose. It is either it causes weight loss or it is weight neutral. So this is a preference drug in a diabetic patient who is obese. If a patient is obese, metformin is given. If a patient is thin, we can give sulfonylureas. Why? Sulfonylureas have insulin-like action. They are going to increase weight gain. Or we have to combine both sulfonylureas and metformin in a patient who is obese. Metabolism mostly excreted unchanged by the kidneys. The important point that we have to remember when metformin is given is we have to look for serum creatinine levels. If the serum creatinine levels are high, if it is more than 1.5 in males and 1.4 in females, metformin is contraindicated. It is available as 250, 500, 1000 milligrams. It can cause nausea, abdominal pain, vomiting. So we start with a low dose and then increase. What are the adverse effects of metformin? Metformin causes GI related adverse effects which are dose related. nausea, vomiting, anorexia, abdominal pain. So start low and then increase the dose. Metformin is known to cause lactic acidosis. There is one more drug other than metformin and biguanides, that is fenformin. Fenformin is not used in diabetes because it is more prone to cause lactic acidosis. Metformin, 1 in 30,000 cases, 1 in 30,000 patients who use metformin, among them lactic acidosis is seen. And especially those who take alcohol, they have hepatic or renal diseases, in them it is commoner. Where do you use where do you use metformin? We use metformin in type 2 diabetes. It doesn't cause hypoglycemia, it can promote weight loss. So it is used in obese patient. It can prevent macro and microvascular complications like nephropathy, retinopathies. It's not going to affect the beta cells. HbA1c reduction can be up to 1.5%. Lipid profile also becomes good. So it is also approved in treatment of pre-diabetes. It is also approved in the treatment of pre-diabetes for high-risk individuals. What are the other uses? Non-FDA approved uses for PCODs, infertility, obesity are being used, but these are not FDA approved. What are the contraindications? Renal disease, if the serum creatinine level is above 1.5, hepatic diseases, pregnancy, lactation, alcoholism, increased age, hypoxia can result in lactic acidosis. So that is why we don't acidosis, metabolic acidosis. Metabolic acidosis along with the combination of lactic acidosis is a huge problem. So if a patient has hypoxia, better avoid it. Severe vitamin B12 deficiency, if it is there. Heart failure, grade 3 and grade 4. Severe infections, those also can precipitate for acidosis, and previous history of lactic acidosis. So among the drugs used for diabetes, we learnt about sulfonylureas and meglitinides. Now we learnt about biguanides. Next we'll go to the next group, that is glitazones. What are these glitazones? Glitazones are also called as thiazolidinediones. The drugs pioglitazone and rosiglitazone. These act on the nuclear receptors PPAR gamma. These are going to regulate genes which are involved in lipid metabolism, glucose metabolism, and adipose tissue metabolism. So this is going to activate. It's going to act in the nucleus on the PPAR alpha gamma gene to produce proteins or enzymes which are involved in the metabolism of lipids, carbohydrates. So where does it predominantly act? It acts predominantly in adipose tissue and skeletal muscles. What are the actions of pioglitazone? Entry of glucose into the muscle is increased, hepatic gluconeogenesis is suppressed. It tends to reverse the insulin resistance by stimulating GLUT4. GLUT4 is an insulin-dependent transporter which helps in the transport of glucose from outside the cell into the cell. GLUT4 is predominantly present in adipose tissue and in skeletal muscles. So usually we tend to combine these drugs with metformin or with sulfonylureas. HbA1c reduction up to 1% can be seen with these drugs, pioglitazones and rosiglitazone. These are metabolized by liver and highly plasma protein bound drugs. The importance of this is they can cause weight gain, they can cause peripheral edema and fluid retention. They can also increase VEGF, vascular endothelial growth factor. They can cause peripheral vasodilatation. This can decrease the hematocrit and it can cause aggravation of congestive heart failure. It can also cause bone loss. What are the contraindications for use of this? CHF and active hepatic diseases. Active hepatic diseases. Do we use glitazones as much as we use metformin or sulfonylureas? We have to understand the main line of treatment for type 2 diabetes is metformin and sulfonylureas. Along with this, if you want to add on we can add on drugs like glitazones or meglitinides. So we'll look into what is the role of glitazones. Glitazones can be used in type 2 diabetes along with sulfonylureas or metformin. In very mild cases or in pre-diabetic cases, as a monotherapy, single line, it can be used. But metformin is the best drug even in pre-diabetics. It can be used in insulin resistance. It is also produces reduction in mortality of MI and in stroke associated with type 2 diabetes patients. There are few glitazones which are banned, like troglitazone and rosiglitazone, because they are known to cause adverse cardiovascular events. MI was increased with them. So now we learnt about biguanides, glitazones, sulfonylureas and meglitinides. Next we learn about alpha glucosidase inhibitors. The drugs among alpha glucosidase inhibitors are acarbose, oglibose and meglitols. So how do these function? These are, when we eat food, these are complex carbohydrates. These are broken down to oligo and disaccharides. These are further broken down to monosaccharides. Oligo and disaccharides are broken down to monosaccharides in the intestine by using glucosidase enzymes, particularly alpha glucosidase enzymes. So when these monosaccharides like glucose, once glucose is produced, that is absorbed from the intestine. This is what is going to increase the postprandial blood sugar levels. Our drug acarbose is going to inhibit this glucosidase enzyme, alpha glucosidase enzyme, which is going to break down the oligo or the disaccharides into monosaccharides. If this happens, the number of monosaccharides is going to reduce. That is, glucose entering through the intestine into the blood is going to be reduced. So that is going to decrease postprandial blood glucose levels. So what are the actions of acarbose? Acarbose is going to decrease postprandial blood sugar levels, triglycerides, cholesterol. It is also going to decrease plasma insulin levels. It can be used in pre-diabetes patients. It will help to reduce HbA1c up to 1%. What are the adverse effects of these drugs? Because the oligo and disaccharides remain intact and they are not broken down, this will be metabolized by the bacteria to produce flatulence. They also act as osmotic agents, which will be able to produce diarrhea, abdominal cramps associated with abdominal pain. They are also able to increase hepatic enzymes. Flatulence is the biggest problem with acarbose, alpha glucosidase inhibitors. What are the uses of alpha glucosidase inhibitors? These are used in type 2 diabetes, especially to control postprandial blood glucose levels. It can be also used in pre-diabetes, where there is impaired glucose tolerance. What are the contraindications for use of alpha glucosidase inhibitors? Diabetic ketoacidosis, chronic intestinal diseases, hypersensitivity, inflammatory bowel diseases, intestinal obstructions, pregnancy and lactation. The remaining of the drugs, we'll learn it in the next class. So till now, we learnt about sulfonylureas, meglitinides and those which increase insulin sensitivity, biguanides, glitazones and alpha glucosidase inhibitors. In the next class, we'll learn about GLP-1 analogs, SGLT2 inhibitors, amylin and D2 agonist. These are the newer group of drugs which are approved for the treatment of diabetes. Other than this, we'll also learn about acute complications of diabetes like DKA and diabetic ketoacidosis and HHS. Thank you.